What does it mean when a narcissist says, I love you? Like it was on the first date that he said, I love you. Spread out throughout the relationship, he started to say, I love you more and more. And then sometimes it felt like it was just like a rote thing, like it just happened over and over. And you're like, does this person actually mean it? Do they actually care? Because it just seems to pop out. And sometimes it seems to pop out in like random or like weird places. And then that I love you seems to be the claim to fame of like, this is how I am here for you, just because I love you. And it starts to mean a little bit less and less and less. And you're wondering, like, wait a second, like, what does this actually mean? Do you actually understand the level or the depth or the understanding of what I love you actually means to me? You see, with narcissism, a lot of times it's very complicated. We're talking about a personality disorder, and we're talking about traits that people have that make life very confusing of what is actually real. Typically because it's hidden underneath a facade of a new mask, of a different version, of a different persona that a person is putting out there to manipulate and to control to get what they want. And when we talk about narcissism, you're trying to understand it a lot of times from a logical standpoint, and it doesn't always make sense logically. Sometimes it's irrational fears, irrational thoughts, and different aspects of running away from shame that doesn't make sense to you because of your upbringing or because of how they started to process different pieces of life. So when we bring up this aspect of talking about narcissism and saying, I love you, it doesn't seem to make sense at times of what they actually say and what they actually do. And if you guys are new here, I'm a narcissist. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to help people have awareness of what's going on. I meet with people daily to help them understand the pieces and the nuances of it so they can start to get free from the trauma bond. Oftentimes when a narcissist says, I love you, and then they seem to demonstrate the exact opposite, it starts you into this aspect of cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is at its base root level, the idea of holding two opposing thoughts at the same time. Do I believe their words or do I believe their actions? Do I make this choice and get yelled at, or do I make this choice and get the silent treatment? Like, which do I actually do? And so many times a narcissist will leave you in this cognitive dissonance place. This will leave you at a place of anxiety, of high stress, of wondering, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to respond? What is actually happening? And it leaves you very confused and oftentimes lost. Sometimes we'll refer to being lost in the fog. The fear, the obligation, and the guilt of being in a relationship with a narcissist. But you shouldn't have that, right? Because they also love you. Or at least that's what he said. And so this puts you into this limbo land of like, what does actually make sense? So when we talk about this, when we're talking about narcissism and love, you need to first understand, like, what is the narcissist's definition of love? Like, what does love actually mean to them? Every single person is different. For me personally, and what I've seen consistently in talking to different narcissists, there's aspects of love meaning control. One of the first breakups I had was this aspect of a girl that I was with that got her license. And that was part of the cause of the breakup. The real cause is me, but I wanted to blame it on something else. For me, what that meant is she just got her freedom. Now she no longer gets driven around by me. Now we no longer connect in that way. Now I no longer have control. And instead I wanted to spiral out and be like, okay, like she's going to get her own freedom. She's going to do her own thing. She's going to leave me. Like all this kind of stuff made me excessively controlling, overbearing. That caused the relationship, among other things, to be able to fall apart. But that aspect, I thought I was being loving. I thought I was being, like, that's the story I would tell myself. A lot of times you're in this relationship and you're like, wait a second, it doesn't seem like love. But the narcissist is like, yeah, it's love because I just want to know where you are. Like, I just want to have your location at all times so I know where you are so that you're safe. But they don't follow that up with actually providing safety. They don't follow that up with actually showing up when you're in trouble. They just follow it up with, oh yeah, I was too busy. Or something came up. And sometimes you realize that just sharing your location with the narcissist because they care is an aspect of controlling and manipulating you, or an aspect of just keeping tabs on you while they go out and cheat. While they go out and abuse you and betray you by what they're actually doing. So this aspect of love sometimes is just you being their number one. You being the person that gives them the attention, the affection, the idea. A lot of times, a version of the narcissist love is this aspect of what can you do for him. It's not this selfless aspect. It's not this caring aspect that he has for you, but it's like, what can you do for me? Have you ever asked your narcissist, hey, what does love mean? Or, hey, like, how do you love me? Or what do you love about me? You'd be amazed to find how much a narcissist will say, I love you because you love me. I love you because you care for me. I love you because of what you do for me. That's what it is. I've said that a million times in my relationships. A narcissist oftentimes loves you for what you do for them. Love in a narcissistic relationship is often used as a tool, manipulation, to be able to get you to do what they want you to do. This oftentimes looks like a guilt tripping, of coercion, of like trying to get you to a place of saying, okay, I'll do this. Because you need to understand with narcissism, there's a big aspect of a lack of empathy that comes in. Not all narcissists lack empathy or have no empathy at all, but many of them are unwilling to give it or unwilling to connect or identify or acknowledge the feelings that you have. And as a result, it leaves out a big aspect of love that a narcissist is not able to tap into. Because typically a narcissist is not willing to move their ego out of the way so they can actually engage with you. So they can actually connect with you and actually love you. The hard part is when you're confused about this, when you're stuck in this mindset of like, I don't actually know what to believe. And one thing I would suggest is if you're stuck in that limbo land, you're like, I don't actually know what to believe, I would challenge you to go to escapetoxicity.com. We're putting together a system and a process so you can get clear on what to believe. We're not telling you have to believe a certain idea or thought or truth, but we're giving you the tools to discover your own truth of what's happening in the relationship. So when we talk about this aspect of what's the narcissist's definition of love, and then what's it mean when a narcissist says, I love you? Like if they don't actually feel it without the empathy, if they don't actually connect with it, like what are they actually using it for? Like what's the purpose? Sometimes this is an aspect of maintenance. Keep the relationship going. You grease the wheel a little bit. Give the car a little bit of oil. Keep it moving because I love you is required to have a good romantic relationship, right? So like it has to look good to society. Like is what you need to hear in the moment to keep you on the hook. Sometimes there's completely different meanings. Like it might mean different things to others, so it's helpful to clarify of like, wait, what do you actually mean when you say I love you? Well, and they start to spiral out because they don't have a good definition. They just know this is what you do. This is how you show up. This is how you respond to get what you want. You need to be able to work through knowing like the true intentions behind what they say and what they do. Like understanding how does this actually match? How does this actually show when how they act? And you need to understand the narcissistic I love you is how oftentimes they use it to be able to control you, to be able to subdue you, to be able to get you to the place of saying like, oh, okay, yeah, it's okay that you just abused me because you love me, right? And you start to get locked into this relationship where they start to guilt trip you, where they start to get you this affection and this attention not to leave them, to stay with them. Oftentimes this I love you piece is like a power play in the relationship. Because they said it first, they've said it longer, and they've said it the most, so they must actually love you. Like, if they tell a lie long enough, you'll actually believe it. Even if it's not true, and even if it's not demonstrated. So oftentimes they'll bring this aspect of love, they'll show this love, but it won't be to you, it'll be to everyone else. But they'll tell you that they love you. And then you see the actions that they're doing to someone else, and like, oh, that's loving, that's caring to that person, and they said they love me, so they probably do, they probably just show it differently. Or maybe they're just comfortable in the relationship, so they don't really show it the way that they show it with other people. But you start to like scratch your head sometimes and be like, but why don't they show it to me? Because oftentimes a narcissistic I love you lacks depth, lacks emotional intelligence. A narcissistic relationship typically is one that is very, very shallow. Because they're not able to tap into their emotions. They're not able to tap into stuff that's underneath the surface because they don't want to actually flesh that out. They don't want to actually admit who they are, the things that they've done, how they've hurt other people. And so this aspect of like, I just need to be able to hide it and be able to move on. Let's just talk about the weather and, have a great date and have sex and me control you and just continue moving on. Like that's oftentimes what's happening. Narcissist oftentimes like says, I love you, but they demonstrate the opposite. And you need to understand not to go off of the words, but go off the demonstration. When the narcissist says, I love you, but he's texting 15 other women, that doesn't demonstrate love. When a narcissist says, I love you because I provide for you, but when he shows up home, he's checked out and is unwilling to engage emotionally with you or the kids, he's not actually demonstrating love. When a narcissist says, I love you, but is unwilling to respect your boundaries or understand when you're feeling hurt or frustrated, how to actually respond, is not really demonstrating that he loves you. When a narcissist says, I love you, and gets you a big extravagant gift or takes you on this trip that you've told him you're uncomfortable at taking or you don't want to do, is he actually demonstrating that he loves you? Oftentimes they'll say one thing and then doesn't show it. Say they care, but they don't show up, but they don't keep their word. Say they love, but they're interacting with other people. They're texting other women. They have these work wives, like all these different pieces that come to fruition. You're like, wait a second, this doesn't actually match up. A narcissist's love is known by what is demonstrated. That's it. If you can take one thing from the video, I'd say just understand that. It doesn't matter what they say. It matters what they do. It matters how they show up on a day-to-day basis. If you're struggling with this concept and wondering how to get free, please go to escapetoxicity.com. You can watch a video that I put up to help you understand a little bit more, and you can even walk through like the daily progress and what you're going to be going through on a daily basis for 7 days to be able to start to change your mindset, to be able to start to get free from that toxicity. So check it out, escapetoxicity.com.